You are good to go.
Good to go. Thank you, Bruce. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals for the 21st day of November 2024. At this time, I'll ask you to please turn off all cellular devices during the meeting. We have a quorum present, so we'll call the meeting to order. I am your chairman of the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals, Bruce Swift. To my left, board members Bill Ingram, Bob Hoffman, Steve Nagy, and Mike Beard. We are your Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals. We are appointed by the county commissioners and serve at their pleasure. The purpose of this board is to provide competent interpretation and full equitable application of the Deep Creek Watershed zoning ordinance. Gentlemen, in your packet, you should have got a copy of the minutes from the last meeting. If there are no corrections or additions, I'll ask for a motion to approve as written.
Make a motion to approve.
Mr. Ingham with a motion.
Second.
Bob Hoffman second. Everybody all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to the public portion of our meeting today. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding. All board decisions are based on the provisions outlined in the zoning ordinance. Today we have three cases today. All three cases are what they call special exceptions. And I'll ask that you be aware of the ordinance and understand that a special exception is basically an allowed use in this district. Barring the presentation of testimony that makes us think this is worse in this area, this location, anywhere else in the zoning district, it's basically going to be allowed. So if you're going to present testimony today against one of these special exceptions, your time would be best spent talking to us about things we can do to make it more palatable for you. We can put special conditions on it. We can ask them to do certain things. We can do a lot of stuff, but by and large, barring the presentation of something that shows us that it's worse here than anywhere else in the district, it's going to be approved. So I like to put that out there for everybody to understand. Any persons intending to offer testimony will be sworn in. You'll step up to the mic, I'll swear you in, and you'll give your testimony. While this board will make every effort to come to a final decision this afternoon, the board has up to 10 days to render its decision if necessary. Decisions by this board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Garrett County for a period of 30 days from the date of the board's decision. For the benefit of those in attendance as well as anybody watching, we request that you step up to the microphone again when it's time to testify. Please keep talk amongst yourselves to a minimum. So we'll move on to the public portion of our hearing. Our first special exception today is a special exception 511, an application submitted by Michael Ohm, trading as Blackthorn Cellars, for a special exception to allow a farm winery and catering facility with outdoor entertainment. The property is located at 2781 Sand Flat Road, tax map 66, parcel 91, grid 20, and is zoned agricultural resource. It looks like we have one letter in opposition.
I believe that is correct. And
let me add to my right is Bruce Metz, zoning administrator for the county. I left him out before. You want to read that, Bruce?
Sure. So Dana Richard has written one of the adjoining neighbors in regard to the application for a special exception submitted by Michael Ohm. She's asking what agricultural practices have been taking place at the property and for how long, what type of agricultural practices will be put in place if the zoning special exception is approved, and where will the products sold be acquired from. These are questions that she would like answered during this hearing. Well, without more information, it appears that this is just another attempt for a bar to open in a residential community under the guise of a winery. We have not been approached by Michael Ohm as a neighbor with regard to future clarification about his project, and at this time we are against the special exception.
Is that all we have?
That's it.
Okay, and so who was going to speak, present this case for us today? Mr. Ohm, you step up to the microphone, please. State your name for the record.
Yeah, Michael Ohm.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to present to the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals is the truth? If so, answer I do.
I do.
Your name and address one more time for the record. Wait, Mike.
Michael Ohm, 2781 Sand Flat.
Okay.
I don't believe that's on, Chad. There should be a button on top. Thank you.
So you good?
Better.
Still not on.
Still no?
Can you?
It looks like it's lit up now, though. There it is.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Thank you. Please proceed.
Yes, I mean, having not done this, I think everybody has the presentation that I gave, right, Bruce? Everyone has that?
I believe, yes, they do.
Okay, so I'll just go through some of this. I'm not going to go through it verbatim, but I'll just talk to some of the pieces that maybe I didn't include. So yeah, we do intend to operate a farm winery. Just a little context and background. We worked with Chad and the Planning Commission for about the last year, I guess it was, to actually have the language added to the Deep Creek Watershed zoning to approve of, or to allow for a farm winery, which is, very typical for the state of Maryland, state of Virginia. It's a very common, nowadays, I'm sure some of you have been to wineries, so we're looking to do that same sort of thing. So that language was added to the Deep Creek Watershed zoning, and so we're going to operate a farm winery. So I guess I'll address real quick the questions that Dana Richards proposed. We don't have, the only thing right now is forestry out there. We have trees, but we will be planting grapes. We'll be growing grapes there as required for the zoning that was set up.
That's part of the requirement.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. For the we will do that. We will be making wine on site as well, and then we will be having a tasting room, like is typical with any farm winery that you see in Virginia and many of them in Maryland as well. We're going to be most likely operating 12 to 6 type of hours. We will open it up for events as the consumers demand and request of us. We don't have any exact plans right now, but I think we will leave that option open so that we can have special events, which is why we were seeking the outside music. We will have indoor and outdoor seating at the tasting facility. And again, we picked the location on the property so as to really, nobody can see it. We try to bring it inside the property quite a bit. We try to stay as far away as we could from neighbors. So the location that we chose is about the best we can do in terms of, because there's wetland on the property on the other side. We have a stream that runs through there. So we chose an area that really nobody can see it. I know Dana Richards' property borders us. That's a field they cut hay in right now, and we're quite a ways away from them. I think about 300 feet or so at least. So I took into account all those, everybody around trying to do the right thing and keep it in the right place. Let's see, what else? So we're on about 100 acres. I think I mentioned in there we're about 1,200 feet from the closest neighbor. Again, the design and such of the facility will be such that we're going to try and minimize, obviously, for everybody around us. Any kind of music will have it pointed toward the building facility, probably in the field coming back towards the facility, because it makes sense. That's how seating is going to be around the facility. The lighting and that sort of thing. We're not looking to operate like the Honey and have bands till midnight, all that sort of thing, right? That's not what we're doing. This is more of a winery. I don't want to work that much anyways. Let's see, what else?
Let me ask you,
Yeah.
Mr. I mean, I was in on some of the planning commission meetings when the ordinance was looked at, and so you're aware of that, and you're meeting or exceeding any of those standards that were written into the new ordinance. And it says on here, she asked where the products sold will be acquired from. And as part of the ordinance, I believe a certain percentage of them have to be grown or manufactured on the property, which you intend to do. But then you'll outsource the allowed stuff from other areas, right?
So we are in the process of acquiring a Class 4 farm winery license, which is the state of Maryland, who has the jurisdiction over that. And the rules set forth in there, we will comply with all those. At this point in time, we're going to be 100% Maryland grown. And we will, like I said, we will grow on our property as well. I don't know how much we're growing. We're going to grow enough, certainly to meet the standard. But it is a very difficult place to grow grapes. You're probably all aware of that. In fact, it's the worst place in the state to grow grapes. So we are going to do that, but we're not going to have, a 50-acre vineyard. I can tell you that much right now. It's not the place to have it, which is probably one of the reasons that Deep Creek Cellars, who has been here for quite some time, they got rid of their vineyard because it's just very difficult, what they were trying to do.
But you're going to meet or exceed the ordinance. That's not a problem.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah, and I think to your point, Bruce, I did outline all of the requirements, like in terms of setbacks and zoning classifications. Yeah, we're exceeding all those. Again, I was trying to be very good about keeping the distances far enough away and so forth. And on our driveway, like we do have 2 neighbors on the driveway, and there are current privacy fences that are in front of both of those houses. So that's a good thing, right? Because I'm sure people will have some concern about that. We do have approval from the county road department for our commercial entrance that was approved. They didn't want me to do anything with the road otherwise. We have 27 feet that's deeded. That's our property, so we have plenty of width for traffic going in and out of the place. As I was talking to Bruce earlier today, we have one location on the driveway that it's got a little bit of a turn, so I'm going to do a little bit of an improvement there to make sure that it's safe and there's enough room for two-way traffic, if you will. And I think, I outlined again, how do we meet the special exception requirements? I think we meet all those that were in the code in terms of, economic development, agricultural process in the state. Farm wineries are determined they are agricultural for the state of Maryland. They are encouraging them, which is one of the reasons why we chose, to go this route.
And just to be clear, the purpose of this board here today is to talk about the use of the property. And if we are to approve you'll still be subject to anything, like you said, like the county entrance and any other of the county requirements and state requirements and liquor board requirements that are out there. We're just talking about the use of the property today. So,
absolutely.
Anything else for me?
Happy to answer any questions.
Gentlemen? Any questions for Mr. Ohm? Am I saying that right, Ohm?
Correct, yeah.
What is your occupancy level?
So for the fire code, it's 134, but we, through the health department, are looking at about 35 right now. We may end up trying to go a little larger with that at some point in time. I'm going to talk to Bryce about that just because of events, but that per fire code is 135.
Yeah, but the events is what kind of prompted the question.
Yeah.
Also,
but we're going to be way underneath that. I'm not going to be anywhere near that.
Yeah, and it would also be pertinent to the traffic coming through.
Yeah.
So for concerns for that. And your hours, you were kind of a little non-committal on that. Are you looking 12 to 6? I know that in an area like that, that's going to be a concern.
Summertime, I think 12 to 6. Wintertime, we're not going to be open, 7 days a week. We'll probably be open 4 days a week, maybe 5. And probably same hours. Yeah, I don't foresee us being anything different. Unless we have special events now and again, right? I want to have that option open, but typical wineries are closing by 6 o'clock. That's pretty common, right? It's not a nighttime activity necessarily, unless you have a special event.
Right. And for the special events, will you plan on having lighting for outside? You mentioned that you'll have indoor and outdoor seating available.
Yes.
And can you talk about the lighting that you're
The lighting, I haven't planned it yet, but I have done a lot of lighting in the past in different projects I've had. It's going to be more ambient lighting, right? Down lighting, low to the ground,
right.
That type of stuff. Yeah.
We're not talking about parking lot floodlights kind of things
No.
where you're causing some.
I mean, that would destroy the character, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't have any intention. For us, it's really all about the experience. We want it to be a really beautiful place. We want it to be a great experience. We want people to come out and enjoy themselves. And so I'm not going to destroy it by doing stuff like that. That's just not, that's something we'll work out.
And as Bruce has mentioned, the parking will be part of the county requirement, so you've already got a plan in place for your parking.
Yeah, we did submit for, parking, yep.
Good? Bob?
Yes, sir. No questions, sir.
No questions? I don't have any questions either.
We good? Okay, thanks, Mr. Owen. Anybody else present would like to speak in favor of this, project? No? Okay. You can sit down. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody wants to speak opposed? Okay. Step up to the microphone, please. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to present to the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals is the truth? If so, answer I do.
I do.
Name and address for the record.
George Holzsnyder, 2743 Sandflat Road.
Thank you, Mr. Holsteiner. Please proceed.
Yeah, the biggest problem I have is not with the winery or anything like that. We've got 3 roads there together. They have the road in the middle, which is 27 feet wide, as far as I know. And my road there is about 30 feet, and I don't know what the one is above it. But they all went to Sandflat Road, and mine separates it, goes down below the house that's right there, which is the road of Carl Holzsnyder's, down Gary Holzsnyder's house. But you got 3 roads going out to the highway within 125 feet of each other. Now, the 2 at the top are right against each other. In other words, you could have 3 or 4 cars trying to get on the road at the same time, and it's just an unsafe situation to have that many roads coming through now. I never suggested them, but the farm they had behind it back here, I don't know why they want to spend money on the thing while they couldn't put a road in back here. 27 feet actually is not enough room to plow snow and have 2 vehicles passing each other at the same time. And I built a lot, they talked about a wooden fence. We put a lot of wooden fence up there because every time the traffic went in there before, they always went too fast and the dirt just flew everywhere. And we put that fence up, partially, not all of it now. We put that fence up to try to keep some of the dirt down. Now, it's not a blacktop road, it's gravel and dirt, and in the summertime it's dry. It's just a big cloud of dust going back through there all the time. Now, if you start adding commercial business back here, you're gonna add a lot more cars, a lot more dirt, and a lot more danger out there on Sandflat Road. So.
Okay.
I think it's just unsafe to get on Sandflat Road there, sorry, besides, our situation could probably be prevented a little bit by building more fence, more wooden privacy fence there, to finish out the property line.
Mm-hmm.
But my road, probably close to 2,000 feet. I didn't measure it out exactly, but if you look on there, it's probably, to the back of my property, probably close to 2,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of dirt to fly up for if you got very much traffic coming there. If you don't have no traffic, it wouldn't be enough room for a truck and a car to pass each other on 16 feet or 27 feet. My dad owned that years ago, and they sold 20 feet to start out with, and they sold 17 more. So, no, I mean, 27 feet total.
Right.
He sold 20 foot, and that's,
okay.
That's how wide that road is going out past my land.
All right. Do you have any suggestion anything we could ask of Mr. Owen to make it better for you? Assuming the county's already gonna grant him permission there, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know, I don't know how much money they're gonna spend on the road, but Spring Glade Road is right back behind on the other side of their property, one farm between them and Spring Glade Road. There's nobody's got any houses along there, along that place. Maybe get a right away and go out that way if they wanted to go out with multi cars, but right there where I'm at, it'd just be a minimal mess, unless they wanted to blacktop that and put a privacy fence up there, I have a lot of problem with it.
I Gentlemen, any questions for Mr. Holzhauer?
No. Well,
Thank you, sir. Anybody else present want to speak in opposition? Mr. Owen, we'll offer you an opportunity to rebut, if you have anything you want to add to help Mr. Holzhauer put his fears at ease.
The only thing I'd say is
I'm sorry, I gotta have you step up here so it gets on the record.
I did ask at least one neighbor about the possibility of getting an easement so they could have traffic in a different place, but I got stopped before I could even get the question out.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would entertain it at some point in time, but what I found is that people don't want to give up any land or anything around here. So, I think it's easier said than done, I think.
Not planning on paving your entrance or anything, or?
I have no plan to do it, no.
Okay. All right.
No. Now, the county is, requiring me to pave the front of it.
The apron or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not the whole thing, no.
Are they making you put curbs in or anything like that?
No, just
No.
gonna make me pave it.
Just pave it. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
and I think I explained, like, I don't know, well, you all saw it this morning, I'm gonna pull back on that, there's a gate there now, I'm gonna bring that back off the road somewhat, so that there is ability for people to egress off the road, right? And then, according to the way traffic works, I looked into this, I will put a sign on as you're exiting to yield to truck traffic coming off the highway, so that there is no problem stopping people on, so they have plenty of room to egress onto the property, instead of backing up Santa Flat. So I'm gonna do that, you know, and they didn't ask me to do that, but I'm gonna do it, because I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay.
And obviously, I don't wanna have, you know, problems with people coming in and out, I wanna best I can, so.
Right. Okay. All right. Gentlemen, are we good? Okay, at this time, we will close the public portion of our testimony on special exception 511 and move on to 512. 512 was an application submitted by Accident Rock Lodge South Solar LLC for a special exception for a solar energy generating system / community. The property is located at 5152 Rock Lodge Road, tax map 43, parcel 127, grid 19, and is zoned ag resource. Did we get anything on that one, Bruce? I see a 513.
I don't think we got any on 512.
Okay.
I received a couple of phone calls on that one, from the neighborhood in the rear, and they were just questioning the location of where it would end up being. And I forwarded the packet to them and did not hear back from anyone on it.
All right, who president's going to provide us testimony in favor of this application?
Got one attorney and two folks who need to be sworn in, so
Okay.
we'll swear everybody in.
All right, step over here, Mike.
Okay.
You want to go over and get sworn at the same time, or how you want to do it? Okay. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to present to the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals is the truth? If so, answer I do.
I do.
State your name and address for the record as you present your testimony, please.
Claire Dockman, 8509 Country Brook Way, Lutherville, Maryland, 21993.
In your relationship to the project?
I represent the development company.
Okay. Step up and give your, we'll let you want to go first? Go ahead and give your, who's going first?
Why don't I kick off, actually?
All right.
So I'll introduce myself. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Ben Wexler. I'm a land use attorney out of Annapolis, here both on special exception 512 as well as 513. It's the same developer. I serve as Maryland Land Use Counsel for Nexamp, which is the parent company of both of these entities advancing these projects.
This one?
Both these projects are with the same landowner. They're on different sides of Rock Lodge Road.
Okay. You
And, we're here
direct me
today
what
to
you want
present
me to
both,
do.
projects and show strict compliance, if not exceedance, of all of these special exception criteria.
Is this, typical for both projects, and I consider this testimony for both projects, and then we'll hear,
I think if it suits you, in order to kind of get through this, we'll kind of give an overview of the company, the project, and then we'll get into specifics of each one of them. But I think to avoid duplicative testimony, unless you guys want to hear the same thing twice, we'll go through the general stuff first,
I like your idea,
and then, we'll keep moving.
okay?
So we're gonna focus on a couple things today. We're gonna focus on the viewshed impact. That's, I do a lot of these projects, across the state, particularly community solar, and they are smaller than utility scale solar. They tend to be relatively easily screened, and I hear the same thing from most communities and most jurisdictions that we work in. What's this thing gonna look like? How's this gonna change what we're looking at? It's gonna change the landscape. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about the water quality impacts. We all recognize that we are in a very sensitive watershed here. We've got a lot of sensitive ecological areas around here. And what we're proposing, we think, is completely in keeping with NextAmp's corporate philosophy. And we're gonna talk a bit about stormwater management. We're gonna try not to get into great technical detail unless you guys are interested in it. We're gonna talk a bit about why this is important for the property owners. And, really, anything else that you guys have questions about? I'm guessing this isn't the first community solar project you've heard, and I'm gonna try not to drone on. Nobody wants to hear land use attorney go on for ages.
You are correct.
All right, so I'm gonna summarize what you said, Mr. Chairman. Special exceptions, I guess, in my view, are neither special nor exceptional. They are presumptively compatible with the underlying zoning district. And I think you will hear from the testimony today that we meet or exceed all of these criteria. We're gonna address all of the concerns. There's two great cases, you guys have probably been briefed on it. One from 1981, that's a Schultz v. Fritz case. The other one from 2008, the Baltimore County versus Loyola case. They effectively stand for the proposition that there's a presumption of compatibility. Our burden is to show that we're compatible and that, you know, this is suitable, and what we meet the criteria. And if so, the project is deemed prima facie compatible. And that there's a presumption that absent any fact or circumstances negating the presumption that this ought to be approved. So, with that presumption and background, we're gonna first hear from Ms. Dockman, then we're gonna hear from Mr. Lefner. I think Ms. Dockman's gonna kind of present from a corporate level who NextAmp is, what they're proposing, and then we'll get into the specifics of each one of the projects. We'll call it Rock Lodge North and Rock Lodge South for obvious reasons. I think special exception 512 is Rock Lodge South. We're going to start with that one, and then I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, we take kind of questions and feedback on each one individually, and then once we hear from the audience and we present a rebuttal, then we'll move on to special exception 513, that's Rock Lodge North.
I appreciate your recommendation, but I will run the meeting, so we got
I understand.
we got it under control.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. And thank you to the board and Bruce for hearing us today. Appreciate your time and looking at our project. Yeah, so like I said, my name is Claire Dockman. I represent NextAmp. We're the developer. For each of the projects, we've set up project companies, individual LLCs. We've got Accent Rock Lodge Solar South and North. Bruce, if you want to go to the next slide, thank you. So yeah, this is our team. I'll be the project developer. We have Kinley Horn with Nick and John. They're our civil and environmental engineers. And then Ben, they're our land use council. And then go to the next, yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
So yeah, NextAmp, we are a solar energy company. We specialize in a type of solar called community solar that you'll hear about throughout the whole presentation. We were established in 2007 by 2 U.S. Army veterans. So, I mean, for the solar industry, we've been around for quite a while. It's, you know, new technology, so not that new, but so, you know, we're established and experienced. We develop the project, we build it, and we manage it, and we own it for the life of the project. So Nexamp is gonna be handling it, we're not gonna develop it and then flip it to someone else who's gonna sell it or manage it. Everything that we work on with Garrett County, throughout the development process, like, it'll be us that is seeing that through, all the maintenance and stuff like that, including decommissioning. We partner with local land use and civil engineers, so that we, have experts in the area that we're working with. And we're nationwide, so we have offices all over the country, but, our closest one here is in DC. I personally work remotely out of Baltimore. But yeah, so specifically in Maryland, we've been active in this community solar program since 2017 when the program was created. We have operating projects that we own in Garrett County. We have one on Sand Flat Road, actually, that's ours. And we've got Frederick County, Howard, Cecil, Anne Arundel, and Queen Anne. Basically just to say that we're established in the state, we understand the regulations, and, we care about the area. We're not just a fly-by-night company trying to come in here and build a solar project. Go to the next one. So yeah, this is our Oakland Sam project. I just wanted to highlight it because it's really not far from here. And this project was actually approved prior to the current zoning regulations with regard to community solar. Just wanted to highlight that because just a little bit different the way that we built it, but it's the same size approximately as the two that we're proposing today. 30% of the electricity from that solar farm services low-income households, and it's been operating since 2002. And then, yeah, so community solar, kind of like what Ben said, there's a lot of different types of solar projects. You've got residential that sits on someone's rooftop. You have commercial, which offsets, businesses, electricity use on site. You have utility scale. You've got those projects that take up hundreds of acres and tie into the transmission lines. And then there's community solar. We work with the local distribution network. These are smaller projects. In Maryland, traditionally 2 megawatt size cap, which is 10 to 15 acres. They've just created a permanent community solar program, which increases that cap to 5 megawatts, which is 25 to 30 acres. So yeah, some of the benefits of this. Basically, it'll reduce electric bills for people in Potomac Edison who subscribe to the project. It's going to increase Garrett County tax revenue due to the screening that we're planning that Nick's going to show you all in a little bit. It'll have minimal visibility. We're going to be doing wetland studies to make sure that there's no disturbance there. It's not going to put any additional stress on public services, like no traffic or public utilities or anything, and actually it might even improve reliability in the area with your electricity, just because we'll be improving the lines on the road and stuff like that. And then just a little bit about how we chose these sites. Number one is landowner willingness. Maggie and John, who are the landowners, they're interested in the project. Also Garrett County, these sites are pretty flat, so good topography, that's a great thing. They're in Potomac Edison utility territory, that's a criteria. Proximity to the existing utility infrastructure, environmental sensitivity, so, we looked at different, areas that were kind of highly sensitive and avoided those, and also we'll be able to access these sites. So sometimes in more rural areas, you've got a property that's kind of inland and you got to get easements to access it, or roadway doesn't allow you to. So these are some of the criteria that we looked at when we picked these properties. And then just one other note before we go into the project specifics. These are temporary projects. We've worked out a land lease agreement. It's a 20-year land lease, up to 40 years worth of extension. So more or less temporary use. It's half a lifetime, but it will be returned to ag use at the end of it. It's not a housing development. It's not something that's gonna, cause a lot of noise or have any light pollution or anything that's gonna really impact or stress the existing use of the area. Nick, do you wanna? And actually, sorry, do you guys have any questions for me specifically before going to the specific
Not yet, but we reserve the right to ask you.
Yes.
Sure, sounds good, thank you.
Nick, do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to present to the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals is the truth? If so, answer yes.
Yes.
Your name and address for the record?
My name is Nick Lefner, Kinley Horn. My address is 215 Washington Avenue, Suite 500 in Towson.
Your relationship to the project, sir?
As a civil engineer.
Civil engineer, please proceed.
Great. Hopefully you can see the screen with the kind of overall site plan. If not, Bruce, I think the next plan is a little bit zoomed in, but if you want to wait there for just a second.
Okay.
If the plans were included in the packet, just kind of for reference, the project's north of the lake, right off of Rock Lodge Road on the west side of the road. You've probably never seen the field that it's gonna.
We visited the site.
Okay, great. So if you went there today, the access is off the west side of Rock Lodge Road.
Is this south or north? Which one is this one?
North is up.
No, is
And
this
is
project,
south.
this is south?
South project, yep. Yeah, so this is the south project.
Okay.
The access is on the west side of Rock Lodge Road. There's an existing driveway and gate. We show an access drive coming off of Rock Lodge Road. It's essentially where if you drove onto the site and you went all the way back up into the big field where there was a couple trailers parked in the field, that's the access drive. So a very similar path will be used. It will be improved though. So just with bringing equipment onto the site, it would be restoned essentially. So we'd regrade and restone the access drive. Down in that area, it's along the stream where there's a culvert underneath Rock Lodge Road. So we'll really be prioritizing, like during construction, sediment control, using silt fences, most likely chain link back silt fences. So we gave some details as part of the special exception application plan, just showing what some of those details would look like. Really, those are being provided just to control sediment during construction when there's a lot of, traffic going in and out of the site, bringing equipment on, to keep wetlands in that area protected so there's no discharges. Once you're back up into the site, we kind of showed essentially where the existing drive is. There's just a strand wire fence. The project's entirely south of that strand wire fence. On the plan, there's kind of a hatched area on the north side or the top of the screen. That's just a temporary laydown area. So there'd be some stone during construction just to keep equipment and, fence materials show up. When panels start to show up, that's where it will kind of be like temporarily stored. But then that'd be pulled up after construction and just be grass. Just below that, there's a nice kind of square box is the project fence line. So the whole project will be surrounded by an 8-foot fence. Right now, I think on the plan we included kind of a ag style like game fence that would surround the project, but there's a chance it could be chain link as well. Right now we're proposing the game fence, but I think the landowner will they usually try to accommodate to say, hey, some people I've seen projects where they say, hey, it's going to be years and years before the project goes away. Wanting to leave the fence in place can be attractive on some of these, just if they want to get better vegetation, and like ag, if they want to grow crops, the fence can keep deer out. So sometimes there's an intent for the landowner to actually want to keep the fencing once these projects are removed. So we usually try to coordinate with the landowner to say, in the event the fence could stay that long, what style fence would they like, but plan is right now a game style fence. If not, it would be a chain link fence. And then in the array, it's solar panels. If you've seen other projects, there's really kind of one or two types. There's fixed tilt, where they kind of always orient to the south, and the panels don't move. And this one is a tracking system, so it's a single axis tracker. The panels start facing east in the morning, they follow the sun to the west at nighttime, and then at night they kind of reset back to the east facing again. So you'll see the panels are kind of like long vertical lines north to south, and that's just because they're kind of on a center pivot and they'll follow the sun throughout the day. Inside the array, there's kind of an access drive that looks like a backwards L. Along that, there's a little rectangle kind of in the bottom right corner of the array footprint, and that's the piece of electrical equipment, the inverter. Kind of takes all the energy that the panels produce, goes into the inverter, and gets converted into AC power. And then there'd be an underground power line out towards Rock Lodge Road, and then a series of overhead poles that would connect into the existing Potomac Edison overhead lines that kind of runs through the woods a little bit. It's not right along Rock Lodge Road, so the overhead poles won't quite make it all the way back out to Rock Lodge Road. They'd kind of be tucked away into the site. For this site, I think if you There's existing neighbors to the far west. I think part of the siting that Claire mentioned, the central part of the site where the project's been sited is really, it's one of the flatter areas of the site. If you saw it today, it's south facing, it's relatively flat, so there should be, there'll be some earthwork required for like building the road, maybe a little bit of grading to kind of get the equipment into tolerance, but it's a generally flat area of the site to support solar to just minimize the amount of disturbance. It's also well sited, I think, from an existing screening standpoint, where along the western property, there's a dense evergreen. Essentially, I think the landowners mentioned thousands of trees that they planted when they first bought the property. To the south, likewise, there's a mix of both deciduous and evergreen forest on the south end of the property, and then likewise, the eastern property just to the east of where it is. It's a mix of both deciduous and evergreen trees. It's a pretty thick forest. We have some pictures I'll share here in a second for the south project. To where it's really, you can't see it from any of the adjacent roads. I visited the site and tried to poke my head through, obviously not going into the woods and onto other people's properties, but couldn't see any of the adjacent houses when I was on site. It's a mature forest stand. I think we have some exhibits I'll share here in a second. But they're 25, 30, maybe 40-foot tall trees existing along that entire western property edge. And really the only kind of, I'd say, vista view is from the property, just over the treetops to the south, and then to the north along Cherry Creek. So you go to the next one. So that's just kind of a zoom in that shows, again, the access drive off of Rock Lodge Road. Again, it just kind of follows the existing road if you visited the site. The laydown area is kind of the crosshatch on the top of the screen. The panels are the long north-south rectangles. There's a perimeter 8-foot fence around the entire project. And then kind of the backwards L, that's an access drive, and it has a truck turnaround for both emergency equipment, but then also, a pickup truck can turn around when it comes in to maintain the facility. And then you go to the next screen. Thanks. This is kind of a view shed that we usually take a look at when we're developing where to propose landscape buffering.
Sorry.
So it may be tough without zooming into some of these. I think I have a full-size copy that helps to either pass around or lay out on the table up here. But what we kind of do is we'll take a look at the topography and the existing vegetation on site. And so in the top left corner, it's an aerial view. So it's kind of, off of Google Maps, or if you pull, there's other websites that you can pull it off of. And it shows the project overlay. So kind of the black box in the middle, it's the same site plan that was on the submitted site plan. All we did was just overlay this on the existing aerial. So if you look, I think this really helps stand out just the amount of vegetation that surrounds the entire project. On the west side or the left of the screen, there's kind of a diagonal hatch. And what we did was just, for your reference, we hatched in all those existing forested areas that are proposed to remain, to just show like there's a couple hundred feet of forest along the western property that already exists today. Likewise, along the south, there's forest.
It's still on this property?
Yeah, everything that has the diagonal hatch on it's actually on this property.
Okay.
There's obviously way more off of the property. We just kind of wanted to identify where the property line was and how much of that tree line is actually on this property. It wraps around the entire south. There is that kind of clear cut along the southern property. If you kind of look where there's a red line that goes through it, that's still set back off of Rock Lodge Road. So I think it's 200 or 300 feet is where the property line actually comes back to where Rock Lodge Road is. And then there's the wooded lot kind of to the east of where this project's located that has a little donut hole cut into the middle of it. So kind of based on that, there's a couple of cross sections that we do. So view shed number 1, that kind of on the screen that you see right now, the entire kind of cross section. What it does is, starting on the west side of it, which would be where those offsite kind of neighboring properties are, we show the existing forest stand. Again, we just kind of represent it as being 25 feet tall, but it's even taller than that. It's set back almost a quarter mile from those offsite properties to where the perimeter fence would be. So, the project was sited further to the east as opposed to further to the west within the existing open field. And I think the fence line, it's set back about 1,000 feet from the property line. So even if you kind of didn't consider the offsite property uses, that from the property line to the westernmost fence line is about 1,000 feet for reference.
So are you testifying to us today that, you don't plan any additional vegetative screening, you believe that there's enough in place, adequate vegetative screening in place?
We do, yeah. We can we have a couple of the pictures for the adjacent vegetation. I don't know if you scroll down some a little bit. Yeah, I think it's actually that top.
Sorry.
Oops. Yeah, it's the next one. If you look at the top, the view shed #1 photo. I don't know if you have a bigger screen. I have a printout of it if it helps to see too. But view shed 1 photo, west. Yeah. Thanks. So that's the forest stand. That's essentially me walking up to the western property limits and taking a picture towards the offsite properties. And that's the view, whatever, 2 or 3 weeks ago after the planning commission meeting. We tried to go out and get some follow-up pictures, honestly, just for reference of how dense these forests are after the leaves have fallen. So if you look on, they're all evergreen. It's just a giant stand of evergreen trees that have been planted. So that's essentially the view from this property to the offsite properties. You can't see any of the homes, any of their backyards. With this is the assumption is if I was on the other side of the trees in somebody else's backyard looking into the site, that would likely be the same view that they would have in this project.
Do you feel it won't be visible from Rock Lodge Road either?
No, I think just the uniqueness of how far it's set back, like to get back to the site, you can't see it. And if you go down some, Bruce, that's the picture from Rock Lodge Road towards the project, the bottom left picture. So even though there's not as many evergreen trees, there's still a substantial amount of evergreen trees in that forest stand. And then even just with the density that the leaves have fallen, that just the density within the forest too is blocking the view. So that picture was taken where, from Rock Lodge Road towards the project area, where that kind of swath is cut out of the existing forest.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't see into the property, even from Rock Lodge Road.
So you've identified all the existing vegetative screening you think is applicable?
Yeah, right.
So if we were to put a special condition on our part here that says that any of this vegetative screen, what you're considering vegetative screening, we might want some guarantee that it won't be removed for the life of the project, you understand?
Yeah. And then if you go back up, Bruce, real quick, just for reference, we kind of did the same in the north-south direction too, right? So there's view shed #2 is in the bottom right corner of this screen. The left side of it says south up on the top. That's essentially if you were on Rock Lodge Road, that's the huge distance of existing forest, and then kind of the open field that'll be located south of the project area. The project's located in the center of the view. And then as you go up to the north, there's a pretty substantial open vista and existing farm field that will remain to the north of the project area before you get to the north property. So we tried to put this together. I know one of the conditions for the special exception for the solar use is having adequate screening of the project. I think having looked at this site, I feel like it's one that's very well screened, especially since all those trees were planted on the west side of the property by the owner years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They really did the project a good favor of getting good mature growth before the project would start.
Can you tell us what the total height of the solar conductors are from mean ground to the top in their highest position?
Yeah, so the solar panels themselves,
Mm-hmm.
the panels.
The total height of.
So we noted on the plan a total height of 20 feet. Really, that was just to say we're going to be below the zoning requirement.
Mm-hmm.
The solar panels, if you've seen one of the ground mounted, where it's a fixed tilt system, they're usually a little bit lower to the ground, and they can follow the terrain a little bit easier. Because these will be tracking systems, they're often a little bit taller because they're up off the ground so that they can rotate.
Mm-hmm.
As they're rotating, because there's just one post, usually somewhere along the post, a panel's higher off the ground than some of the other panels would be if you're like going up or down over top of a hill. We'd be well below 20 feet. I think usually these panels on average are about 10 feet above grade. But again, because they're kind of designed to be on a straight post and the ground may go up and down below it, it might vary 12 to 15 feet if you're like crossing, you know, if you're crossing a low spot, one of the panels might be a little bit taller. So that's why we put 12, but they would be, we put 20 on the plan, but they would be nowhere near that height.
In the past, when we've seen these kind of things, we've been presented with like a glare study, something like that. You have anything like that?
I don't know if we've done a glare study yet. I know usually we do a pre-screening. There's like an FAA tool that you do to say whether you need to do a glare study for like airports. I think that was done for these sites and it's clear, like there's no glare study required for any of the adjacent airport facilities. And then too, with the glare study sometimes, I don't know if it was a full glare study that again usually gets triggered by like some kind of FAA requirement. The panels are usually now, kind of where Claire was mentioning, the technology advancing. Most panels now are sold with an anti-glare coating on the panel itself. So it's not necessarily as smooth as glass. It actually has a little bit of texture to it. And that's just to prevent glare coming off of a really smooth surface like a windshield of a car. Likewise, I think the panel just, the way that they're designed, it absorbs most of the solar energy as opposed to reflecting it, where as opposed to like a windshield actually can have a lot of glare coming off of it on like a car. And then likewise with this facility, the way that it's oriented, I would think it's surrounded by mature vegetation on all sides. I wouldn't expect there to be any glare to offset properties.
You wouldn't expect there to be, but if we, how are we to know for sure? I mean, so
yeah,
we may ask for something like that.
Yeah, one hasn't been done, and I would like the applicant to confirm, but I'm sure we could say it's like for site plan approval, we can provide a glare report.
Yeah, yeah, hi, we could certainly do a glare analysis,
Okay.
Yeah, on your request.
Okay. Tell me again what the megawatts were of this one?
Two.
Okay.
Hi, also, we sized it at 2 megawatts to meet the zoning code, limitation. Like I mentioned earlier, the state has listed their cap, but we would want to obviously stay within the zoning code.
Yeah, we still have to. Okay. So we can assume that all this information you've given us is consistent with both projects?
Yeah, except for the view shed stuff.
Okay.
Because we are proposing landscape buffering for the other project, so.
Okay.
The panel height be saying, you know, labeled as 20 feet, but being far less than that, same for both sites. The 8-foot game fence that could be chain link fencing, same for both sites. The gravel access drive, improving. This one, I'd say it's more true, improving the existing driveway. But yeah, pretty much everything about the system design itself is the same, just the siting, different considerations were taken. This project, it was, you know, keep it on the southern half of the property because then you're not on a north-facing slope. That's also a much steeper area. This is a south-facing slope and it's generally flat to allow less earthwork. And then it's sited further to the east side of the project so that it's not as close to the adjacent residence. Okay.
So we're going to consider, gentlemen, that this testimony is consistent with both applications so far. We're going to hear 512 first, and then when we get to 513, we'll hear about the vegetative screening for that one. So, Do you guys have any? Does the board have any questions?
I do. I don't want to jump out of order, but our ordinance specifically requires a detailed landscaping plan that includes any existing vegetation and the type, location, and spacing of any planting shall be submitted. Mr. Wexler notes that on page 5 of his letter, and he says a detailed landscaping plan that includes existing vegetation, type, location, spacing of plantings as shown in the site plan. I go to the site plan, and all we have is a delineation of the existing vegetation. Some of it is not even on the property. Is that is it your position that that's a detailed landscaping plan?
So, and I think for the landscape plan on this, I think we delineated where the existing vegetation was, and I think there's labels on there calling out the existing vegetation remaining.
But what if the property owner, Mr. Chavez, to the north, decides to cut down those trees?
Yeah, we didn't want to rely on any of their any off-site properties. That's why we patched in just the existing vegetation that's on this property. If you scroll up a little bit on that. This has the same thing that's on the site plan, it just has the aerial in the background.
Well, all I see on this site plan that I was referred to is the hash marks say existing tree line to remain. It doesn't say what the trees are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not very detailed. Existing tree line is not a detailed vegetation plan, according to this detailed landscaping plan.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the plan proposes to keep all the existing forest that's on site to provide screening. I think this was provided supplemental to it to just show our analysis to how we got to the proposed landscape buffer being just keeping all the existing vegetation on site, to show that there's vegetation on the entire west, south, and east side of the site.
He's already testified to no additional vegetative screening is, they don't believe any additional vegetative screening is required.
Correct, yeah, and proposed for this site, the north site that we'll talk to next.
Right.
We are proposing landscape buffering. We felt more landscape buffering was needed to screen that project, so we gave the detailed landscape plan for the north site.
Right, I understood that too.
That's all.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir.
Good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of special exception 512?
You might just want to state that no trees will be cut for the lifetime.
Okay, I think so, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you are about to present to the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals is the truth? If so, answer I do.
I do.
Your name and address for the record?
Margaret Hoffman, 5152 Rock Lodge Road, Accident, Maryland.
I'm assuming you are an owner?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Well, I just wanted to say that we approached this solar project with excitement because we really were worried about the future of our farm, not only because we're getting older, but because we're not willing to do some of the new farming practices like spray your whole farm with Roundup, and we just didn't want to go there. So we have 2 children, 2 boys, and they're truck drivers, and they like their job, and they're not interested and have no time for farming. So we're thinking, you know, what next? We don't want to sell it for housing development. So this seemed like a great idea, and we've talked to both of our sons about it, and they like the idea. Plus, we think solar is a great way to make energy. As far as our farm, we bought it 36 years ago. We didn't inherit it. We got no help from our family on either end. And my husband said, you know, the only way we're going to be able to afford the payments on these 2 farms is if we milked cows. And we thought about it. We really wanted these farms. So we worked really hard. That's what we did. We milked cows. We worked really hard, just the 2 of us. Our kids, as soon as they got old enough, they went out and got jobs, and then they got wives, and then that was the end of them as far as being helpful on the farm. So it's really just up to John and I, and we can't keep farming it. It's hard to make a profit farming now.
So you're looking at this as a way of being able to keep your family farm?
Yes, we'd like to keep the family farm. We don't want to sell it and have it develop, and we'd like to retire.
Understood. Board have any questions for me?
No, ma'am.
Thanks, ma'am. Anybody else would like to speak in favor of special exception 512? Is there anybody present who would like to speak in opposition of special exception 512? Okay. And at this point, we will close, gentlemen, right? And no further questions, and we'll close the public portion of our meeting on special exception 512 and go to special exception 513. I assume we have the same folks representing for us. You want to speak to the unique features of 513?
Sure. You want me to?
You don't need to rehash, just if you got everything we've heard you say so far is common to both projects. What's unique about this project? Anything else you want to tell us?
Bruce, if you could scroll down, this is the north side. If you want to just skip everything until you get to the site like that, that'd be great. And I think, could you go?
Oh, sorry.
Is there one more screen above this one? Nope, that's fine. If you want to go down, we just talk to this one. So for the Rock Lodge North project, would have been, sounds like if you attended the site visit earlier, it may have been the first site that you guys went to.
That's correct.
It's located on the east side of Rock Lodge Road. On the vicinity map, up in the top right corner of the screen, it kind of shows a little bit better zoom out. I think we had an overall plan as part of our application. Where if you're coming south on Rock Lodge Road, there's a pretty hard bend as you're kind of coming out of the woods. There's kind of two turns, and then you head south down Rock Lodge Road again. The project's located in the field on the east side. I think what's a little bit more unique about this property is I'd say the entrance off of Rock Lodge Road is very similar. There's an existing home located there. There's a driveway. One thing that's unique is the off-site, the adjacent owners, that there's actually a lot. If you look on the vicinity map to the north, there was a previous subdivision. If you look at an aerial, they're wooded lots. But there's adjacent homes, and those homes actually have access from a driveway that crosses this property. Whereas the south project's a little bit different, that nobody has to drive through that property in order to get to anywhere. This one, there's an existing driveway there's an easement granted across the property to grant access to those residences that are located in the woods.
Is that the driveway we use today to go up in there?
Should have been.
Right.
Yeah, unless you went rogue. There are two. There's another one on the south end of the site. That there's a driveway that goes back to more of an open area, and there's like some borrow areas kind of out in the field. But if you turn right next to the house, that was the driveway that goes back to the woods, and there's some lots back in the woods. So it's proposed to keep the driveway entrance location. It would just be improved. So new stone would be graded along the driveway entrance as you come back into the project site. What we try to do is kind of limit the impacts to that driveway. Again, it's on the property, but there is an easement to keep access to those off-site property owners. So the existing driveway would be improved, but we kind of kept the limit of the improvement as short as we could. And then you can see we kind of veer off of it with a new driveway that would run parallel. So there's kind of the existing drive. If you look on the plan, there's a label about halfway through that says Blades Way. That's the existing easement that goes back to the wooded lots. The existing driveway is kind of, Bruce, thanks for highlighting it. There's two dash lines with kind of a gray line between them. That's the existing driveway that we would just be proposed to remain. And then that kind of area just to the left of where Bruce's hand is, that's where the new driveway will actually come off of the existing. So we'll approve a brand new driveway that will come over to the site. Really why we intended to do that was, during construction, when there's equipment drop-offs, it gets them off of the road. That way there's not a chance for them to block the driveway. Similarly to the last project, there's kind of a crosshatch on the north side, on the northeast corner. That's where the laydown yard would be. So, all of the fence posts, panels would be kept off of that existing driveway and kept in the back end of the site. Similar, all the kind of north-south long lines, those are the solar panels. They're surrounded by the same 8-foot perimeter fence. The difference on this project is the screening that's proposed. So there's a couple of detail sheets in the packet that you should have got that shows a typical landscape buffer. We propose to have kind of a mix of landscaping around the project. So kind of working from the project out, you'd have a hedgerow along the fences. Just beyond that, there'd be kind of a little bit of a break where some understory trees, deciduous, would be planted, just to give some seasonal variety to the landscape buffer. And then kind of outward and most public facing would be a row of evergreen trees. Really the goal of the landscape buffer would have some shrubs and deciduous trees kind of located in the project that you get a glimpse of the understory trees, but then really establish a row of evergreens so that the landscape buffer looks a lot like what we showed as part of the south presentation along that western boundary line. The landscape buffers proposed for this project, kind of represented with a looks kind of like a stop sign or like a circle, but there's a landscape buffer proposed the entire length of Glades Way from where the kind of pull-off driveway comes into the project. There'd be a landscape buffer from there all the way to the rear property, and that's really to screen the houses to the back that just have an easement to cross this property, was actually to provide screening both for them, but then also screening from Rock Lodge Road. We did a similar kind of cross-section exhibit I'll share in a second. And then likewise, where the kind of pull-off new access drive is provided, there's a landscape buffer provided to the west, kind of back out towards Rock Lodge Road along Glades Way, and then it kind of turns the corner and runs parallel to Rock Lodge Road for the entire frontage towards Rock Lodge Road. And then it again kind of turns the corner and it starts to wrap back a little bit on the southwest corner of the site. The landscape buffer kind of ends there, and then I don't know if you go down, Bruce. We should have the same kind of aerial exhibit. This is the copy of the landscape plan, kind of in the middle where it says landscape buffer detail. If you pretend that like the solar panels are at the top of the page, the fence is along the top of that detail. There's a row of shrubs, kind of the staggered trees that are spaced with the understory deciduous trees, and then the straight row of trees across the bottom would be the evergreen species. And those would all be planted at standard nursery height, which is usually about 6 feet tall is what they'd be installed at.
Why is there no screening further back the south, the long south side? You just turn back there a portion of the way, and then what is screening the rest of that? Is there a joining?
Yeah, could we go to could you go down another stream? We did one of the same, there's one of the aerial pictures that kind of shows a bigger blow up of the area that might be able to lift off.
I have it here somewhere probably.
In order to get everything to fit
Where
on
do you
one
want
page.
me?
If you go down just a little bit to look at that aerial. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so this was essentially prepared the same way that we did the south site. The bottom right-hand corner has an overall aerial with the exact same site plan that was included on the site plan application materials. It has the red lines that cut through the site, which represent just where these kind of view sections were taken for reference.
Excuse my ineptitude.
There, that's good.
Better?
So just pan over to the right a little bit. I think that's actually great. If you pan over to the right. Could you pan up just a little? I don't know if it goes up a little bit. If not, that's fine. Yeah, that's perfect. So there's, as far as screening, so kind of the turns I was talking about with Rock Lodge Road, we put kind of it's a little bit harder to see on this one, the amount of existing forest on kind of the eastern edge of the property area. But we did the same. We hatched all the existing vegetation that's on the property with kind of a diagonal hatch. So kind of starting on the north side of the property, closest to Rock Lodge Road and Glades Way, that there's a landscape buffer provided along the entire length of Glades Way in the project.
Yep. Now I got a question there.
Yep.
On it, that's great. You realize you have two wide open fields there, and with the snowfall we get in the wind, it blows across there. With what you are planning on putting there is probably going to cause an issue with the snow building up on that lane in the wintertime. On there, I own several farms, and we have to put snow fencing up around to keep it off the county roads.
Yep.
who's going to maintain the road on Glades Way for the people who happen to have a property in the back? Keep that open. If you cover the road in the wintertime, and they'd like to get in and out.
Yeah, so, from what I understand, the landowners, they're great too. It's just a right of way, like it's an access easement that's provided, so really the removal of snow on the driveway, it's up to the off-site landowners. From what I understand though, the property owners actually have a relationship with couple of the neighbors that live in that neighborhood, and they'll actually clear the drive for them sometimes.
Okay.
So
Okay,
if people are coming into
you're
town-
gonna cause a drift in there, it's gonna be,
And I think
they never had before.
it's tough, but I think, there's gonna be snow on their field regardless, and I think we're happy to remove the landscape buffer or relocate the landscape buffer. We just thought it was thoughtful for the neighbors.
Well, I agree with that, but I'm just
To be
saying
south of
the
the
issue
drive.
is now the snow blows through. I'm a contractor in the area and I have some houses that we got to work back in there, and I've been there wintertime thinking about what am I gonna do to get in there to do it and how much it's gonna cost me
Yeah,
to maintain that road to keep it open.
yeah,
You know, right now it blows across is not an issue at all.
yep,
But as soon as you put a barrier up,
yeah, it can act as a snow stop.
it's gonna be just like a snow fence we put up out in the valley.
Yep,
And it's going to cover that road.
yep.
I'm just asking.
What else you got?
So yeah, the landscape buffer goes along all Glades Way, and then along Rock Lodge Road on the west side of the project, and then kind of to your question is like, we returned it, but like, why does it stop? Along the red line that's labeled Viewshed 2, there's actually kind of a knoll, so that's a high spot along, and we have a picture we'll kind of show you where if you're standing, there's kind of a black circle on Rock Lodge Road. We have a picture from there that we can pan over to in a second. You can't see this property from there.
The property such you can't see it.
It's
Right?
cut, the road's cut through the grade, so the grade's probably about 4 or 5 feet above grade. So as you're driving up along Rock Lodge Road, kind of areas much further to the south, there's forests, and then I'd say it's probably at that point half a mile from the project site. Then there's some existing ag buildings. There's a silo, there's a barn, that you can kind of see on the bottom of the aerial, on the bottom of the screen. But then once you pass that farm structures, kind of the barn and the silo, the grade actually comes up above Rock Lodge Road. So if you're driving along the road, you just kind of see a hill. You can't see back into the property.
Do you have a picture of that?
And then just as you get past the hill, I'd say there's a couple of the commercial buildings on the west side of Rock Lodge Road. When you get just to the north side of those and you do kind of start to get a glimpse back over to the property area, that's why we kind of wrap the corner with the landscape buffer. So that once you kind of get past that high point and you're able to see the property again, we provided screening there. And then further to the west, the property has a similar kind of evergreen stand in the southeast corner of the property. So yeah, here's a couple of pictures where the top Viewshed number 1 photo is actually taken, where on the aerial, it says Viewshed number 1 west. That's Viewshed.
That's coming down Malta Road.
Yeah, so
Okay.
as you come down Mazza Road, it's a little bit higher as you go to areas west, but kind of, it's a picture of the view as you're driving down the road, right? The wooded lots kind of on either side of the road. If you look in the picture, you can just see part of the field right there. Mazza Road also bends as you approach Rock Lodge Road. So you kind of can see like through the trees a little bit, but then as you actually get further down the road, it drops down in elevation and there's kind of a turn right before you get to the stop sign. The Viewshed number 1 photo east is on the east side of the project, taking a picture towards those off-site neighboring properties. Again, they're wooded lots. That's the row of evergreen trees that are there today. I drove all the way back to the woods and didn't go into the woods onto their property, but I don't even know that I saw a house, because I couldn't see through that area and I didn't want to go trouncing back onto their property. For Viewshed number 2 photo south, that's kind of the picture that I talked to where the grade, you can kind of see on the left-hand side of that picture that the grade's up about 4 or 5 feet. And this picture's taken down near the ag properties. That tree's right next to one of the silos. And then the Viewshed number 2 photo north, That's from Rock Lodge Road on the north side of the property. There's kind of a tree line in the distance, and then just in front of that, there's a field. That's where the project's located. So that's why the landscape buffer is provided all the way along Blades Way. That's really, I'd say, the primary view area is from Rock Lodge Road itself. So that's why we screen the entire north side along Blades Way, the entire west side along Rock Lodge, and then kind of that corner going down along the south side, kind of for areas beyond where just the natural grade kind of cuts the view off in that area.
So am I safe to say that your testimony is saying that with your suggested vegetative buffer and the existing vegetated buffer, a car traveling down Rock Lodge Road going planned north would not be able to see the array?
Yeah, from kind of the area that's
Your black dot.
that red line up to the top. Yeah, I mean,
you're not going to see it.
maybe if you turned your head and you stared sideways out of your car, you'd get a split second as you looked in, but I'd say it's screened, and then really the only areas if you go much further to the south along Rock Lodge Road, but at that point you're half a mile down the road, and that's where there's a lot of existing forested lots, because that's where the south entrance is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else for us? Gentlemen, any questions? We have a couple of letters of opposition I want to read to you, maybe give you an opportunity to, if there's anything in there you want to address.
Sure.
Did you want to say something?
I'm just gonna join.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Letter number 1 is from Aubrey and Brent Housley. And they may have been, they may be adjoiners, I guess. As a full-time homeowners residing in close proximity to the proposed solar field, we have the following questions for the solar company and or property owners. Number 1, have there been studies on the impacts of the construction on the neighboring wetlands along Cherry Creek that eventually feed into Deep Creek Lake? Any such studies required?
Was that submitted for this project?
No,
This is for 13.
I think that's for south.
For south, yeah.
This is for 13, so it says 513,
That's 513 on here.
which would be north, right?
No south.
No, it's south. 513 is north.
If you look at the property owner location, it is right next to the south. I think this is a typo.
Okay.
They must have
I'm reading that.
I'll address that.
You can address it to either one. Okay.
Happy to, yeah. So the north project, there's a wetland also, on the north side of the property, so north of Blades Way, we're not touching. So that area is just fully buffered, same sediment control that I talked about on the last one. I think I just asked if it was related to the south project, because Cherry Creek it's not really close to this project. Cherry Creek is on the far west side of Rock Lodge Road. Cherry Creek actually gets closer to the south project site, but I think I addressed that question when we were talking about the south side.
Yeah.
The wetland on the south side may feed into Cherry Creek eventually.
Yeah,
he
eventually
says-
it does. drain there.
It says 513, but then he calls it south, so he is talking about north, I guess. Okay.
So, yeah, if it's the north side, there is a wetland. Wetlands should be buffered 25 feet. We have, I think, close to a 100-foot buffer.
Mhm.
Exceeded what the buffer requirements are. We provide sediment control during construction. And then post-construction, the entire site's gonna be stabilized. And I think actually some remaining areas of the property still hay cut on the balance of the property once the project's built. So, yeah, I would say for the north side, we're staying away from all the wetlands and more than exceeding the usual buffer requirements.
So there's not a study done, there's requirements, and you've met the requirements.
There is a study, you go out in the field, you test the soils, you look at vegetation, you delineate the entire wetland. We did all of that, and it's shown on the site plan, and then we just stayed really far away from it.
Your plan meter exceeds any requirements, okay.
Correct, yeah.
Some of these, I think you've already answered. Number 2, what will the access infrastructure look like to the subject property? I'm sure that increased road traffic, construction of vehicles will require improved infrastructure. What does that look like from the Rock Lodge Road, wetlands, neighbors, et cetera? I feel you've addressed that already. How long does the construction take for such a project, and when would it begin, assuming you were approved?
I don't know if it was on your slide that you presented. It may have been on the slide earlier. Usually the projects take 6 to 9 months
Okay.
to build. I think 12 if the utility holds you up. So
Mhm.
just, when you finally have to make the connection kind of into the overhead
Okay.
poles, that's the only thing that might drag it out.
Who manages the solar field, how long is the contract? You've already answered that. What sort of infrastructure improvements will be required to handle the new electricity output? Where will those lines run, and what properties will be impacted by these adjustments? Is your on-ramp to the grid already existing, or?
Yeah,
You wanna answer it
yeah,
or
I
I
can
will?
just high level, yeah, from what we discussed with Potomac Edison, no new poles needed to be placed anywhere on Rock Lodge or anywhere will tie into the existing line.
Mhm.
It's possible that they'll require us to reconductor those lines,
Mhm.
but it would be no new placement of poles, no disturbance of land. And then as far as on the property itself, I think Nick spoke to that earlier, but yeah, there will be some new poles placed on the landowner's property.
Okay. Number 6, how will this impact our real estate assessments with this currently being agricultural land, and we expect a significant change? Will we expect a significant change given the new commercial uses? I'm not sure you're qualified to answer that. Do you have any opinion on that?
Not qualified to answer that, but if the person who submitted the letter would like some, studies on, I don't know if they're referring to property values.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, we can provide some studies that we didn't conduct, but that are, kind of,
Okay.
yeah, we can send them to
Well,
you.
and I think what helps clarify is that there'll be improvements made to this property that'll affect the tax basis of this
This
property
property, yeah,
assessed at.
yeah.
But I don't think that there'd be any, it's not like there's a requirement to then go reassess offsite property. So this land value would be increased and would actually add more tax basis for the
Do
county.
these studies show any impact to the value of surrounding properties? Does it impact the resale value of surrounding properties positively or negatively? Is there any studies like that? I think that's maybe what they're kind of asking.
There's lots of studies,
Mhm.
and they all say very different things,
Mhm.
depending on where the studies are done. So a lot of them have shown, I'll share that some have shown that property values actually increase when you're adjacent to a solar property.
Okay.
Some will show that properties decrease. I'd say most that say that it's decreased, those studies were done in very urban areas, like very heavily developed properties, or adjacent to large-scale utility-scale projects.
Mhm.
I think there was one done somewhat recently out west where there's a similar strong community solar program, and that study, I usually don't like to say it, but it did say that they actually recognized some land value increases because of the proximity of the project.
Okay. Number 7, how many acres is the proposed project, and what are the exact locations of the solar plots? You've answered that. What sort of light pollution can we expect from the project? There's no light pollution, right? We talked about the glare, possibility of glare, but no light pollution.
No, yeah, it's a good point. Usually, I think sometimes there's misunderstandings on just what solar projects are. If you Google solar projects, there's reflective solar that beams light and heats turbines, and yes, there's a ton of glare, and yes, there's light associated with those. This is a photovoltaic, so it's a solar panel that's on top of your house. It absorbs the light's energy, and some people, I think, if you Google around, that there's flood lighting, like you might have on some kind of industrial commercial yard. There's no lighting. If anything, sometimes there's a single light at the entrance just for safety if there's maintenance at nighttime or the utility wants one. But then usually it's essentially like a post light. All the light would be directed down. Yeah, down. There's no floor lighting for the site.
The house lease finished with, we apologize for not being present, but these are our questions, concerns, and we have, and believe all neighbors should factor into with this proposal. Board members, any questions on that letter?
You hit the first ones that I needed.
Okay, all right. The second letter is from Jennifer B. Dear Mr. Metz and zoning board members, my name is Jennifer B. and I own a property in the Glade subdivision, which is adjacent to 5152 Rock Lodge Road. I am very conflicted with the news of the potential zoning change to 5152 Rock Lodge to become a solar farm. Although I am all for renewable energy, there are a few things that cause me concern with having a solar farm in the proposed location. My husband and I bought our property 4 years ago, and one of the selling factors was the ambiance. The property was off the beaten path in a forest with all sorts of wildlife far enough off the road to provide quiet peacefulness. The beauty that surrounds it is just breathtaking, and rightfully so, as Garrett County prides itself on the beauty of the region, being the property butted up against the ag resource in close proximity to the conservancy. We felt the beautiful views from the front field would not run the risk of being obstructed from development. The close proximity to the lake area was also a plus. According to adding solar panels to the proposed location will take away that ambiance, as necessary as renewable energy is. In its current state, it's an eyesore and not what we anticipated when purchasing our property. One of the main faults with our property is the ability to access it at times. Our access road off of Rock Lodge Glades Way goes through the 5152 property according to the deed and those of our neighbors inclusive of 5152. This is supposed to be a 25-foot right-of-way. It is nowhere near 25 foot wide, 15 at best at its widest spot, which makes entry and exit a challenge in and of itself, especially when there are vehicles going in either direction. Having some traffic with a permanent structure added to the adjacent land will increase the issue. The access road needs to be widened to its deeded width to accommodate any additional thoroughfare. Drainage from the surrounding farmland also creates problems with the road. There is a natural spring on the farmland that can be most visible after an abundance of rain. The runoff onto the right-of-way creates erosion to the road, which creates ponding and thus large holes. Neighbors from the glades have tried to fix it, adding height to the road to thwart the runoff, filling in holes, adding in trenches parallel to the road to help divert the water, but between the natural elements continuing to deteriorate it, and not everyone being aligned with the road should be maintenanced. Nothing has helped. I'm concerned that the addition of solar panels to this land would further exacerbate the drainage issue, creating even more runoff and erosion on the road. Drainage control to divert away from the road will need to be done. In addition to access our property and the Glade subdivision in general is also difficult and close to impossible during the winter months when the snow leaves drifts on the road somewhere well above 4 feet high. Placing permanent structures will create more buildup of snow and further increase the issue. Some sort of safeguard must be put in place to ensure the property owners are able to access the road to the property without increased issues. What also concerns me about the addition of the solar farm to the property is the impact it will have to the wildlife. Sure, not much clearing of the land itself will need to be done, and it's mostly already clear, but countless numbers of animals migrate through this land in addition to the dozens of deer that can be seen nightly. For years, species not native to this area like the sandhill crane or red poles have used the area as a stopping point on their flights. Installing solar panels in this area will disrupt the migration and habitat of both common and uncommon animals in the area. I can only imagine the trickle-down effect this will also have on a neighboring conservancy, which aims to protect the fragile peatland and provide a habitat for animals in the region. Finally, the addition of a solar farm will decrease our property's values, of which were just reassessed at the higher rate, and when we had purchased properties will need to be reassessed again to take into this account, thus creating more hearings and paperwork. In conclusion, I urge the county to please consider these statements and fully think about the impact it will have when other requests for rezoning will come up if this one is approved. Where does preserving the land that we have come into play? I also urge the solar company to look for other properties that will have less of an impact on neighbors and the environment around it. Land that is deserted and used up that can be repurposed for something much more useful for the area. Signed, Jennifer B. I don't think there's anything on there you need to address. I think you've addressed most of it, or anything that pertains to you. I think you've addressed it already. I think she's speaking to the issue that Mr. Nagy brought up about drifts on that road. We'll discuss that a little bit further. I've got one more from James White. Please see the below concerned question we have in reference to the zoning hearing docket SE 513 application for special exception by the Accident Rock Lodge South Solar. Also, how can I get a copy of the solar generation plan? The statement begins, as property owners of 1116 Limpopo Lane, McHenry, Maryland Subdivision 270, Plat A36, Map 42, parcel 253, lot 43. We have some questions, concerns over the special exception for the use of the solar generation station at the John Hockman property located at 5152 Rock Lodge Road. According to the Garrett County online GIS map, and knowing what we have found when we applied for a building permit many years ago, the entire 170.98 acre Hockman property is within the protective species Garrett sensitive area, which we understand it to mean there are subspecies of plant vegetation that is protected by regulations. Also, there are several locations on the Hockman property that are designated by Garrett County as Paulistine wetlands. According to the Maryland MDE website, Garrett County relies on Maryland laws for wetland regulations and its state summary. Garrett County relies on state laws for protection of wetlands. However, the county does require a 50-foot buffer on streams in designated non-growth areas and a 25-foot buffer on streams in growth areas. Local jurisdictions may have additional laws pertaining to floodplains, MDE link laws and programs. We have also seen that Maryland SDAT has the property listed as special tax recapture, agricultural transfer status. For the record, we have not seen the plan for the solar generation station on the Hockman property, and we have not been able to find it online on the Garrett County Planning and Zoning website, so we must ask the following questions before we can state support or no support for the special exception. How will the Paulistine wetlands and protective species area be protected before, during, and after the construction of solar generation station and special exception is approved? Is there more to that one?
I kept looking too, Bruce. This is page one.
Is there more to that one?
I didn't get page two.
If there's more to that one, I apologize. I do not have it. Again, I don't know that you have to address anything on there. You're all within compliance of your wetland. You've been over all that, right?
There is.
Oh, I got.
Sorry.
Sorry. We got one little bit more. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What was
Yeah, just regarding the wetlands for, like, the north site, I think that's what the letter was written for. They mentioned the
I think they mentioned 513, but they talked about south.
They did
So-
both letters. They did, yeah. But
both
anyway.
of them.
And I believe that is, that Limpopo Lane butts up to south.
Okay, so yeah, both of the sites, we have reached out to DNR. The north site, DNR actually confirmed that though it is in a sensitive species review area, there's no concern for the north site.
Okay.
That allowed the buffer to get reduced from 100 foot down to 25 feet. The south site, there's portions of it that are, so same, I didn't really touch on it on the south site, not having the questions, but wetland and stream delineation was done, buffers were delineated, and I think the existing drive is just gonna be improved to go back to the site. But if there is any widening to the drive, we would have to permit any impacts to wetlands or streams through MDE, which would require sediment control that I kind of talked about during both the south and north side.
They
Yeah.
may still ask you to relocate that drive to, just
We
FYI.
would, essentially the driveway, the north site, we don't expect any impacts to wetlands at all. The south site, there's already an access drive, that's the only access to the back end of the property, so there needs to be a driveway some way from Rock Lodge Road, whether it's a solar facility or a house being built on the western side of the property. What MDE and what we would propose to do is you minimize and reduce the amount of impacts. So we're not gonna go straight through wetlands for no reasons. We're gonna try to avoid and minimize any impacts if there are any even required.
Right. And anyway, at the end of the day, you're going to meet or exceed any requirements imposed on you by MDE or whoever. So the rest of the white letter, how would the special exception of the current agricultural zoning of the property be affected in the if the special exception is approved? How will the Maryland SDAT special tax recapture status be affected if the special exception is approved? Was there any type of environmental study performed or planned by Garrett County government or MDE prior to the approval for the special exception? Lastly, we know from recent visitations to the rear of our property, east end, that is adjacent to the Hockman property, that there is a 300 to 400 foot buffer of many conifer trees on the Hockman property that were planted many years ago and are now mature. The tree cover has become a regular bedding place for deer, rabbit, and other wildlife. How will these areas be affected by the solar generation plan? So you're leaving all the trees, so that's not a problem. You can't really speak to any special tax recapture. So you guys have any questions?
Tree line was the only thing that was pertinent on that section.
I would just state one thing, we are not rezoning anything for the record. We're doing a special exception hearing. And then secondly, anything pertaining to MDE and SCD, wetlands and the species, those are all gonna be looked at by other agencies. It has nothing to do with the zoning hearing. So they have many other hoops to jump through before approval of the project itself, so.
That's right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Anything else to add?
Just briefly on the tax issues, to the extent that there is any tax recapture or any tax changes on the Humphrey property, under the lease, that's the responsibility of the project developer. It's not given up from a taxation and assessment standpoint, and certainly from a tax recapture standpoint. It doesn't change either the zoning or the use of any adjoining properties, and it's just not going to be impactful.
Understood. Okay. You folks have anything else you want to say? No. Okay. All right, thank you for your testimony. Anybody here that wants to speak in favor of 512 or 513? Anybody present would like to speak in opposition? Going once, going twice. Okay.
So,
Thank you. At this point, we will close the public hearing portion of our meeting and go into deliberation. You're welcome to stay. Again, we'll do everything we can to come to a decision today, but we do have up to 10 days. So, thank you. Yes, sir.
we're taking a pause.
Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second, please, and I will. Sorry.
you're welcome to stay, but we'll ask you to be quiet. If you're gonna talk, we actually ask you to leave the room. Hello? We're gonna continue our deliberation here, so you're welcome to stay if you like. If you need to be quiet, if you wanna talk, you have to go out in the hallway for us. Appreciate it. All right, gentlemen, let's talk about special exception 511, Mr. Ohm's property. Any concerns, any conditions you wanna put on Mr. Ohm? Is it worse here than anywhere else in the district? What's our thoughts?
It seems to me that as far as the, like you talked about the lighting, talked about the sound, that he understands that there's already a ordinance that covers that.
Would you suggest that we put those standard requirements for live entertainment, like the Comar, the inward, downward lighting and all?
He's asking for less hours of operation though, or do we limit him to what he asked for, or do we go across the board with those regulations? I mean, this is a different use, this is not a commercial, this is not a restaurant.
I would just state that he didn't really, he said he stated what he intends to do right now, but reserve the option to.
The hours of operation, we're just going to give him free control to do what he wants.
Well, I don't know if we list them typically we say no later than, right?
We typically, for live entertainment, there's a 10 p.m. cutoff.
Yes. So
Live outdoor
if
entertainment.
he wanted to, so that's why I think we should put the list down that we normally do on anybody else.
That's what I'm asking, so.
Yeah.
Don't restrict it to 6 o'clock, he said, go with our standard thing.
Correct.
Even though this is a different animal, this is not a restaurant, this is
Right.
like he said, not to whom, you know.
How do I always get
You
drug
always
into
get
this
it.
conversation?
Is that
But I believe that we should do it like we do anybody else.
Yeah.
That way he has the right to do whatever he wants up to that point, and then it stops.
you sure thought, even though this is a different type of entity, you agree with that?
This is the first time for the farm winery,
Yeah,
so, Chad built this animal, or put it through as an amendment. I don't think that, we didn't put any limitations in the ordinance on it, so.
It would fall under the general.
The SC, it's under the SC part where you guys can make restrictions and requirements that are deemed, adequate to protect the surrounding areas.
I mean, there's a bit of history that Mr. Ohm brought it to the planning commission, and they decided that they wanted to take a little time to work on it, because it was a new introduction, so we had several months where they batted it back and forth and refined it and came up with those regulations, and then the commissioners approved it that way. So what's written in the ordinance was something that the planning commission worked on several meetings over the summer.
Be a little bit yet.
It seems to me that we ought to list the restrictions that we do, like Steve said, normally.
For live entertainment.
Yes, it
Okay.
gives him, some
Guidelines.
latitude, but it's no more latitude, and we're not creating anything special, and I think that's.
Yeah.
So you did for that hotel at Glendale Road a couple months ago.
Correct.
And again, I think the fact where his locations,
Yeah.
he's full.
I agree, that's why I'm asking, but this could be the first of many, so we wanna try to set the bar. So we're gonna put in the typical restrictions on entertainment and outdoor lighting, the down lighting.
Down lighting,
He
yes.
said he intended on that, I don't think that's a problem.
That's all part of that.
And that's in the ordinance as well, there's
Yep.
lighting control.
So we don't need to worry about that.
You can say that they didn't follow the lighting control, it's in the ordinance.
Everything is following the ordinance.
Does that also address, parking lots, because he's gonna have to have some kind of a parking lot? Now, I know what he said, but I'm just curious, does the ordinance address it as well?
You could require the same parking as restaurants, that's what's done sometimes for like banquet halls.
Yeah, banquet hall would be
Which
great.
would be one every three,
For every three
seats.
occupants, yeah.
One every 3 seats.
One parking spot for every 3 seats?
Yes.
I mean,
Okay. I think Bob was speaking of lighting. weren't you?
I was referring to the lighting, yeah.
Yeah, lighting.
Because I know that, sometimes there's high, tall poles and that sort of thing, but, I don't think he's gonna go that way. But I was just curious whether the, ordinance addressed that.
Commercial uses, this is just general, it says section shall only apply to outdoor lighting in commercial or industrial use. Properly diffused as needed with a translucent or similar cover to prevent exposed lighting elements from being directly visible from public roads or dwellings. And then outdoor lighting shall be properly directed, placed, and shielded as necessary to prevent the lighting from creating a nuisance for residents or other properties. To contain light on the lot to prevent light from shining into the eyes of motorists. That's more for bigger commercial projects.
Sure.
This would be.
We're gonna do anything to address Mr. Holt Snyder's?
I want to talk about that next.
dust?
I want to talk about that next. So, so the lighting for the building, lighting for the parking lots, gonna fall under that. Do we have to specify the parking lots or the parking spots, or is that?
Parking is gonna be required
That's
by
covered by some- we
by
don't-
the ordinance.
We don't need to worry about that. The live music, what we're saying, and now, Mr. Holsteiner's.
I don't think he has valid concerns. He's gonna have to pave the entryway anyway. Why not go, he says he's gonna move that little gate thing back. Why not at least go back 100 feet with the paving or something? Get the people coming off of Sam Flat Road, turning in there, it's not gonna kick up the dust. I don't think he needs to pave the whole half mile.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But adjacent to the properties, because it is kind of a.
It's gonna be more than 100 feet though. I
He says
mean,
1,000, Mr. Holstein says 1,000.
That's what, from the road to the back of his property.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'd
think
say
that's
that's
too much.
probably pretty close.
I think that's too much for something there at the entrance right where that house is.
Well, his house is the one that's
The second
halfway
one.
back the lane on the left. That's where the wooden fence was.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably a good 1,000 yards maybe. I mean,
So
if it doesn't go beyond his house, you're not gonna help him at all, cause the dust is still gonna get kicked up right there. That's his issue.
Right, yeah.
how about that, and I know that this is related, but it's slightly different. But, so the county has already looked at.
The entrance.
The entrance, yes,
That's it.
and how it impacts, where it intersects with Central.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay, that's,
The main thing they're looking at entrances, approvals are that there's a safe, distance for them to get out based on the speed of the road
You'll be
traffic.
able to see so many hundreds of feet each direction, or the road will turn you down.
I'm okay with what you're saying, a fence or a road, but a fence then starts to create another problem, like Steve was saying on the other one, you know what I mean? So I think he needs to be responsible for his dust the way he has to be responsible for his runoff and everything else. He's going within a few feet of those houses. I don't think that's a little prohibitive, but there's no other option. It's not, you can't tell him to get it right away across somebody else's land and make another entrance. I think if we could put my vote would be to put something in there that says he paves it back past any dwellings within 100 feet of the road or something.
He actually needs to pave it back to where his entrance is, where the no trespassing sign was, which is the end of that fence.
Well, that's past that house, isn't it?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be my thoughts on it.
That way he can wind it to the 27-5, wherever he needs to make it, all the way back where people can pass safely on both sides. Have no issues involved.
Yeah, I just worry about him controlling his dust the way he should control his runoff and everything else. I think that's a valid complaint. We're
But
going
once you
so
got
close
where
to
his
these
gate
houses.
was, the property just went down grade, so everything then would wash to his side of the property, not to the neighbors on. Of course, they were on their side, so elevated anyhow to begin with, more than on the right. But the
I think
elevator
there
guy,
were
the gentleman on the left who spoke, anything on that, wanted to go down on his property.
I think he had a driveway side swell on each side of that thing to take care of that.
County ordinance makes him responsible for their runoff, right? I mean, he can't.
That's not a county road. Well, yeah,
But I
the
mean,
stormwater management
stormwater
portion of that,
Where
yeah.
he created new drive back to the new part,
Mhm.
you'll have to have that as part of the stormwater plan. The existing road out there has been there for forever, so we're
But
not.
if he started shooting water off on the neighbors, he'd have to be responsible for that.
Yeah, they can get it from that. That's a general stormwater regulation.
Mhm.
Stormwater regulations also have been there since 1985, so we have to be careful when there's things that have been there before that, like if the main road to a house was there before it, there can be grandfathering, so we were looking at everything newly created back in there. It's coming under the new stormwater.
But we are kind of changing the use of this one, so maybe we have a right to say, you know, I don't know. I'm in favor of it with the conditions that we said. I think it's a good addition to the community, I like it.
I agree.
I do too.
Huh?
Payment.
Back past any residents within 100 feet of the road. Do I got a motion to approve with such conditions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Beggy makes a motion to approve, any seconds? Second. Mr. Hoffman seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. You're good to go. We got a few conditions we're gonna put on you, nothing serious, but you're approved. Thank you. The use, you still have your building permit and all your other stuff to
Yeah.
deal with, okay?
Yeah, can you tell me what the conditions were? Do you have that? Or?
I'll get those to you
He'll get 'em to
tomorrow.
you. He'll get them to you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, guys, let's move on to special exception 512 and essentially 513.
Let me, give you guys
Let's do it one at a
ballots,
time.
please.
Huh?
We
Okay.
need ballots, yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about 512.
Okay, so definitively, which one is that?
512 is the first one we went to, and
Okay, 512.
512 is the south one.
that's the one that they're proposing no additional vegetative screening, right? No, that was the other.
No, it's 513.
This is the one they are putting the vegetative screening, okay.
I think,
Can you all give me 511 first?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm with you.
You're gonna cover the conditions, right, Bruce?
I've got you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
It's
sir.
not an appeal, so we have no say in it, right? It's not an appeal, so.
Yeah, they're all appeals.
Okay.
It's just that's the appeal.
Okay.
Thank you.
So 512 is
First
the
property or
second one we got into. 512 is the second one.
512 is the second one we went to.
it's down
Everybody
that lovely road, picture of the road.
Okay. 512 is the second one we went to. They're proposing no additional vegetative screening.
And when we stopped in the trucks, it was, well, when I was standing there, it was in my back, it was the one with a bit of a mold, correct?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, with the trailer right there.
oh, yes, yeah.
This is the second one we went to today,
This
correct?
is the second one, yeah.
So on that, you're gonna, mention no additional cutting of any.
I want to guarantee that they're relying on the existing vegetation on this
That they
owner's
get control,
property,
right.
that remains in place
Yep.
until, for the life of the project.
Correct.
Right?
Yes,
I agree with that.
and
Absolutely.
by the life of the project, you mean it's
Until
20
it's
years
decommissioned.
plus,
40.
yeah, plus they said 40 years worth of additions.
Yeah.
So the life of the project is all the way till the end.
Until it's
Until
until completion of decommissioning, yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that's it, right?
I mean, it's back here, you can't see it from anywhere.
Bonding for decommissioning is already covered by the
That's
county,
all
right?
taken
That's
care
all
of
we need.
by our office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anything else on that?
You get a percentage
Well,
on
have my standard objection, I'm not gonna try and sway anybody, I'm opposed to it. because it specifically says the standards say you'll submit a detailed landscaping plan, and nobody ever does that. And I don't think what was on the site plan is a detailed landscaping plan.
Fair enough.
But that, I mean, I support whatever you guys wanna do, but I'm opposed to it.
You vote the way you vote the way you feel. Anything else you wanna?
Let me ask you this, Mike, do you feel, this is the second place that we went to, do you feel that there needs to be detailed on that
Yeah,
part?
that's what the ordinance says. I mean, it says.
But if he's not putting
what type
anything in.
of plants are they, where are they? All they
Right.
had was a little squiggle that said this is existing forest, and some of it wasn't even on this landowner's property.
Mhm.
I don't think, and it was 1,400 feet away. I don't know how you can take advantage of trees that may be cut down that are 1,400 feet away from the project.
Well, we're telling him that he can't cut them down to ones on his property. The ordinance says screening from neighbors. It doesn't say how close it has to be to the, right? It doesn't say how close it has to, it says screening from neighboring properties. So it could be, the screening could effectively be on the edge of the property as long as it screens.
And that guy that was down in the valley that we rejected at first because they didn't have the
Yeah.
landscape plan, and then he came back with a detailed plan and we approved it.
Mhm.
And that's-
Mhm.
Well, to clarify that part, it says it shall be screened from adjoining properties and adjacent roads. Detailed landscaping plan that includes any existing vegetation and the type, location, and spacing of any plantings shall be submitted. Plan shall result in year-round screening, shall be maintained until the site is decommissioned.
So it doesn't say that you have to identify the species in existing vegetation, only in proposed vegetative screening. That's what I just heard.
It just says detailed landscaping plan that includes any existing vegetation and then the type, location, and spacing of any planting. So it's more detailed on.
For the additional, so he doesn't have to, the way I hear it, he doesn't have to detail the plants, the screening in the existing screening that he's taken, that he's utilizing, and he does show on the drawing, does the hatch area, he does identify it, he doesn't go through there and identify each treatment type. This, I don't think that onus is on him.
This is the north one, which is not the one we're talking about, and he does have a detail.
For that one, yeah,
Yes,
for that one,
yes.
you're right. But he's adding screening, they
That's
are
right.
adding screening, this one they're not adding.
That's the variance, right?
Yeah. But any other,
No, listen,
we worried about a glare study, I mean, you know, kind of, we see this one from outer
No,
space.
This is a totally different type of array. I mean, as the gentleman mentioned, this is an absorbent, not a reflective surface. So, if the glare study is something the board is interested in seeing, I could support that, but to my understanding, I don't think that it's necessary.
Yeah, I think the technology has advanced.
So then we're looking for a motion one way or the other. You wanna make a motion your way? Anybody wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve and take the heat off of my.
Okay. Mr. Engel will motion to approve with our condition of the screening, the identified screening remaining till the end of, till the place is decommissioned.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Altman with a second, all in favor?
all right.
All opposed? 4-1.
Thank you.
So now we're talking about 513.
Thank you.
This one I'm not as sure about. It's so close to the road. I think Steve has a valid point on his
We need to
concern.
come up with something on the screening they're putting into that road for snow removal on there somehow, some way. I don't know.
Does more screening?
There's gotta be a deed, a right of way or something to the homeowners in the back. I don't know. One lady said it was, 25 foot, and I have to agree with her. That road's not 25 foot wide back through there.
We'll just clarify.
That's
just the right of way.
The right of way would be different than the cartway within the right of way, and that right of way is providing.
I don't know how the wording is on.
Yeah, I'm not sure, just generally speaking.
But you know, you're concerned
You
about
might have a right of way.
the snow was brought up in one of the letters
Or egress,
that,
utilities, all kinds of stuff.
And
Bruce
the
read,
Gravel,
same
parkway,
concern I have.
That's right.
smaller
It's going to
than that.
The right of way is there, but it doesn't
Somebody-
necessarily mean that it's been improved in any manner.
Yeah, in the
Put the
county, we
burden
might
on
require a 30-foot right of
people
way
in the
for a
back,
12-foot
the burden
wide
go
road
on
for
Right.
5
projects
lots
that they're
Just
creating.
pointing that difference out.
I
Thank
think
you.
if the project is creating with the condition, then, you know,
Because right now,
that's where the focus
it's
ought
not
to be.
an issue.
Well, let's be clear about this now. It looks like, I don't know if this thing is to scale or not, but it looks like they're only using the common road for, if this is anywhere near to scale, for 600 feet, and then they make a new road, okay?
Right.
So, we need this vegetative screening here.
That's the issue, the new vegetative screening.
Right,
It's
so,
gonna be an issue.
but I think that needs to be there. Does additional vegetative screening on the other side of the road help act like a windbreak or
No,
a?
I think it's going to.
I think it traps
That's
it.
gonna
I
make
think
it
it traps
worse.
it, yeah.
I think it'll make it worse.
Mhm.
First off, there's no place to push the snow to begin with.
Mhm.
Right.
That's right.
You know, but you know, if we have winters like we've been having, it's not gonna be a big issue. But we go back to winters we had 25 years ago, and it's terrible.
So,
Well,
any,
They'll never get the snow out.
any suggestions?
The one letter mentioned that even in their short time there, they've seen 4-foot trips, which I
Right.
don't find hard to believe in that field.
Well, and we can't worry about that. All we can worry about is, does this make it any worse? If they got,
That-
if,
And that's what,
you know,
when he puts
yeah.
that up, you know, what they have there, they built on there, and then they're gonna put the fence up, and then they're gonna put that screening in, it's going to back up. You know, it does on my farm all the time out in the valleys. You know, I have to put fence up along the roads to keep it from the county. Well, the county requires us to put the fence up. And we do it.
So what's the answer? They can put fence up?
The answer is, I do not know whose responsibility it is to keep that road open to get to the property in the back.
I would think it would be the property owners back there, it's their right of way.
That's correct. But now we're building something that's going to impact their drive.
That changes it.
I think that changes it in my book.
What if the farmer would have planted trees there though, along that trail?
That's a lot of what ifs you can do in life.
No,
But right now, you know, it doesn't. Last year, we had about 2 foot of snow on the ground. I drove back in there because, like I said, there was a gentleman I was talking to. I wanted to see if we could get in that place, what it was gonna do, and it blowed across. I had no problem, white truck, you know, 3/4 ton truck and 2-wheel drive went in and out. I didn't have to lock it in or nothing.
Yeah, and I would hope that anybody who lives back there has
Anybody
got
lives back there.
minimally got that.
Yeah. Now, you put that in there and then you try to see what happens.
So, what is,
I don't know how you're gonna word it, they'll ask me, I'm just saying, but somebody, you know, they're going to cause an issue with the road. And again, I don't know what the specifications of the deed are, or who opens the road up or anything. But right now, it's doable. As soon as they build this, it's gonna become an issue.
Okay,
Do
so
you-
let
do
me
you-
throw, if we're going to pass that responsibility because of the impact. To Bruce's point, that goes back to the property owner, I think, and not so much to the developer.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't
To
know how
my
you
mind,
wanna- Yeah.
Yeah, because the property owner is the one that invited the developer in.
Right.
So if the property owner making that decision,
but we don't wanna approve something that's gonna make a condition worse for people to have a right to use that road. So, I mean, do we turn it down based on that? I mean, what could they do? Could they come in?
I don't want to
could
turn
they
the
come-
project down. That's not where I'm.
Well, I know, but okay.
Yeah, I'm not pulling that route at all. I think it's a great project for what they're wanting to do. I got no issues with anything. I'm just a little concerned for the property owners that's in the back. And I think it's a minor thing for somebody to pick up a cost of plowing or keeping the road open for what everybody is getting out of this now. You know, everybody's making some money on this project.
Right. Right.
If they have to give up a little bit of money to keep the road open, I don't think that's a big deal.
So that would, so you're saying, put a special condition on that they're responsible for keeping that road open?
Keeping that road open, yeah.
How do you enforce that then? You know?
I guess the first time somebody lives back there gets hung up and doesn't like it, we'll find out. See who they call.
Any thoughts on that?
The only way to do road maintenance is to have a road maintenance agreement with everybody involved, and I don't know how we do something like that on an existing subdivision that was pre-subdivision ordinance. If this would have gone through subdivision, there would be an HOA, and they would have an established means of maintaining that road. I don't know how you do it at this point. I don't know if there's any kind of agreement existing, I don't know, I'm not familiar with that.
Steve,
that
does
situation.
it make sense to pull this screening down to the fence like this? I mean, this is not gonna cause them a problem here, right, this part? Is it just the screening? I mean, I don't wanna give somebody something
Snow
we can't
fence?
enforce.
How far is the metal fence going to be from the Glades Way Road?
It's gonna be 100 feet away, right? Wasn't that what
I
we?
think it had to be 100 feet away.
100 feet is the setback.
How far away from that roadway is that fence?
Is that 100 feet? Glades Way.
Not exactly sure, I'd say it's probably close to 100 foot.
That's what, I thought we gauged that.
That's
Scale.
Yes.
Ask question to you, Bruce?
You can ask the board a question.
Not really. Public comments closed, I mean, I mean, if that's the scale, it's 100 feet.
Yeah, that's
See,
exactly what
my
I was
thing
saying.
would be, if it's getting to be such an issue to do this, I would see them give up that vegetative landscaping. You know, if they got 100 foot to the fence, those things are wide open, so wind's gonna blow through. And if they've got a chain link fence, nothing's gonna stop it on air. Otherwise, you do chain link fence, you put the slats down through it if you need to, and hold it back 100 feet away from the road.
Well, my question is, why don't we ask them to move the vegetative screening down along the fence like down here? And give that open at
That's
100?
fine too.
Does that accomplish the?
How wide's the vegetative screen?
Well, I was just, thank you.
30 feet, isn't it?
How wide do they plan on making that?
Detail everything here. I can hardly read that, 30 feet. So now you're down to 70.
If the fence is 100, you have 30 would be 70 foot
You
area.
still have 70 feet of.
Leave it in good shape. You know, you got 70 feet to work with. I don't have an issue personally with that. On there, if that's the right numbers.
So perceived problem solved.
If they move it up to the fence.
But you gotta allow for the growth. If it's, I mean,
It's still
The
70
landscaping
foot.
screening it's
Yeah.
putting in there now, is it just to keep the people driving Glades Road from seeing it? Is that basically what it's for?
Well, the ordinance says you have to screen it from
and
adjacent
yes,
property.
to his testimony, it was for the people that are using that access road not to have to see it.
I know you
Because
can't,
from-
probably can't do
If you're
it.
coming south
Yeah,
from there, and you're coming
Okay,
up
well-
over that hill
well, they're still gonna see where they have their entrance up next to the farmhouse.
and.
I know, cause that my driveway and I was going in, I just soon give up the, landscaping part of it, guys. Well, I have to move the snow.
But the ordinance says you have to screen it.
Snow fence? You said that's what you do. You put up a snow fence, how effective is it?
How effective are they? I'll invite you out the valley here in the middle of winter, you tell me.
I know it's.
They run snowmobiles and all across it.
Yeah.
We have no problem at all. It'll get about that high, it'll go about 20 feet out. Keep it off the road. We probably put them 50 feet down, 50, 60 feet off the county road.
You just make that a
Yeah,
stipulation.
and then that's what I said, there's no issue. That's why I say, here we have 70. So I think it would work if you put it up against the fence.
So the only place you can, I don't know if they can change this a little bit,
But I don't really.
thoughts, Chad?
You're a zoning board, not meteorologist. That's just my opinion, I would just be, that's just my opinion, I would just be careful with conjecture about this, because I don't know that we're making that problem worse or better with that. So that'd be my only thing, just, I always say, just look at the words of the ordinance and go by that, and obviously listen to the testimony, and if there's something you think you can do that'll make a definite difference, that's up to you guys.
We had a letter that was concerned about the snow drifting.
Yeah, we did. Was it Mrs. B or Ms. B?
Something like that.
Yes, it's Jennifer.
Jennifer. If to do any good if we put in there, it's not really a condition, it's an observation. Our observation is that, you know, in wintertime with snow, there may be the establishment of the project may create an issue with regards to passage on the road. That needs to be addressed. I mean, I don't know that we're in a position to say, ooh.
That's a fine point.
See there, they moved that fence out right there. I didn't see that. They moved that fence right out to that vegetated,
They did that to create their,
or lay down area.
their contractor yard there.
Staging area.
Any suggestions?
I think you have to approve or deny based on what was presented to you. And if you deny it, I guess you can put some notes on there as to why.
Well, I'm not for denying, I'm gonna tell you that right now. I don't have an issue with anything except make the comment on that landscaping.
Why don't we do that? You know, and not make it a condition, but like, I use the word observation, it can be whatever words you wanna use, just put that in there and maybe a responsible person will, obviously not the county, but a responsible person, either the landowner, project developer, whatever, will take note.
Then during it wasn't a definitive, during testimony, it was stated that the landowners will sometimes clear that road.
Yeah.
And we can't rely on that.
Yeah,
I mean, they're gonna keep it open to here, cause they gotta get in.
Right.
You know. Well, do we have a motion on the floor?
Based on, and not to minimize what Steve, where the concern is, based on where we are with it right now, I make a motion to approve it as presented. It's in testimony that this roadway will be improved to create their new turnoff. So the concern of these folks back here of the impact of any commercial traffic coming onto the property is going to be covered by them as testified.
The commercial traffic's not gonna mount anything once it's operational.
No.
There's
I don't know
are
whether-
never in there.
No,
Go
I'm
and
just
mow the
talking
grass a couple times out of the year, and that's it.
pre-construction, they're gonna have some not typical equipment on property
Well, that's a said and done.
to improve, but then once it's all said and done, yeah, you're talking about the
As long as the
construction
burner
stuff.
don't catch on fire and burn up, we don't have much issue.
Can we make them responsible for the length of the road, for the length of the project?
No, I don't think that's,
You don't think we can?
I don't think that's.
It's not enforceable, right?
No.
Can we write up as, we would suggest that they would move the landscaping area back against the fence?
What is against
Fire
the fence?
marshal may require access around the perimeter.
Well, if you give him what he needs.
Yeah, I'm just
I
pointing
mean,
that
if
out.
you need, 10 feet or so, run a truck around it.
He has it everywhere here, but they have bumped the fence out at some point right here. probably to get this equipment pad, switch gear in the locked area, you know what I mean?
I'm just saying, I don't wanna make a catch-22 where we're telling them something, fire marshal, something else.
Fire marshal negates it, yeah.
Yeah.
Our marshal overrides us anyhow, you know that.
And so does he.
He overrides every rule we have.
So approve the conditions, they pull the vegetative screening as far back from Glades Way as they can?
Personally, yeah, that sounds good. We gotta help them somehow. You know, we really can't force the owner to be the guy that plows out the road.
Right.
We have our time forcing the people installing this to do the same thing. But at the same time, we've gotta think about the people who live back there. So,
You okay with that?
I'm for proving that we can pull the landscaping back as close to the fence as possible.
Is that reasonable to everybody?
With that amendment to my, motion, I can go on that.
Yes.
So cite your motion again. Approve.
My motion was, now Steve's got the motion because mine was as presented.
Your motion
I'll
is.
make a motion to approve it if we can pull the landscaping back as close to the fence as possible.
Okay, but what about where it is against the fence but still against the road? See, that fence jumps out here, the fence jumps out right here. The fence here is only 30 feet from the road.
Yeah, but that fence there, the snow's not gonna be an issue with, it's gonna blow right through that. Well, it's not gonna lay up against it. So if you would move the landscaping back next,
Inside the fence.
inside the fence as close as you can, I don't know what distance they need around their panels.
Mm-hmm.
I believe fire marshal is 20 feet.
I think that's what it is.
Zoe wants. But yeah, they give us 20 feet, 30, 50, that still gives us 50 foot for snow delay. It's gotta help.
One question for you. Is it possible to pull that fence back? It is.
After the construction site is done, you
Mhm.
don't need that yard.
That's just our construction, right? That's just your laydown yard.
And then do your landscaping. There you go.
Let's do it like that.
Yeah, I'll do it.
So the motion
You're
is,
doing really good biting your tongue.
so the motion to approve with the condition that they pull that fence and vegetative screening as far away from Glades Way as possible.
It's possible, yeah.
Once construction is complete.
Once construction is complete.
Right.
That's the motion on the floor.
Yep.
Mr. Ingram, seconds? All in
Second.
favor?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
No. 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Okay. As you guys are filling out your last,
You wanna conclude the meeting?
I
I'll
will.
shut this off.
let me conclude the meeting. Action on docketed case is 509, special exception 509. An application submitted by Cheryl DePrato for a special exception to establish a bed and breakfast in the properties located 29 Glen Meadow Road, tax map 59, parcel 309, lot 25, in the zone of Lake Residential. We approved that in the last meeting. Action on docketed cases B, special exception 510, an application submitted by America Real Estate Company, care of U-Haul Moving and Storage for a special exception to allow truck and trailer rentals. The property is located at the intersection of Garrett Highway, Glendale Road, tax map 58, parcel 424, grid 16, and is zoned town center. We approve that one. Old business, there is none. New business, anybody?
None.
There is none. The next meeting of the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals, what's that?
We're gonna have a meeting in December.
We are.
The next meeting of the Deep Creek Lake Board of Zoning Appeals is December 19th, 2024 at 3 o'clock.
What
Do
date
I-
is that?
Thursday, December
19th,
19th.
I believe.
And I probably won't be here.
If that is all, gentlemen, can I get a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Do it.
All in favor?
All right.
Get out of here.
Thanks to everybody. You guys got the gist of that?